talking to the computer screen and everything, I was not recording. So I hit record. So I think we're on. Okay, so hello everybody. So today is the last day of notes that we're taking on Chapter 1 content. So if you're keeping up with the reading assignment, you should be finishing up with Chapter 1 this week, because right now is the last day of Chapter 1 notes that we're taking, okay? On Friday, when we do our virtual day, since y'all are a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, and some of you virtual students anyway are watching this lecture, on Friday, we're not technically going to watch a video that you have to take notes on. You're going to watch a video of me explaining your first project to you and giving you the due date for your first project, okay? So I will show you, I will post that project worksheet thing or instruction sheet in course content. There will be a video of me, hopefully not more than like 10 minutes long, explaining to you what you need to do, and it'll give you some time to review what that project is asking you to do and contact me with questions. Of course, next week is Labor Day week, so we will have a shortened week in this class, and that will also go for everybody who is a cyber student, whether you're a Monday, Wednesday, Friday student or a Tuesday, Thursday student. I'm going to keep y'all all on, you're not supposed to say y'all all, right? Just say you all. I'm going to keep you all on the same schedule. So even if you're a Tuesday, Thursday student of mine, you'll have a shortened week next week. Because, you know, we'll kind of let you have a holiday too. Okay, so, yes. So this last lecture that we're going to talk about stuff from Chapter 1 today, we're going to talk about the origins of sociology, and the very last thing that you should have in your notes, if you are keeping track of the lectures in order, which you should, is we discussed social facts, okay? So social fact is a basic definition of a concept in sociology, where we have a pattern that exists on the macro scale in society, and that pattern includes all kinds of rules about how we're supposed to behave, how we're even supposed to think and act and react and feel emotionally about stuff. It includes all kinds of patterns that all of us have to follow. Well, I say we have to follow, here's my big air quotes, if we want to be normal, whatever the heck normal means, in our society, right? So that macro scale pattern of thinking, feeling, and acting affects our behavior on the micro scale. It affects our perception of the world on the micro scale. So essentially, what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about the origins of sociology, but we're going to use that concept of social facts, where macro scale influences micro scale, which also goes with the sociological imagination, which you really need to practice every single day, being able to see macro and micro connections. So hopefully this exercise in note-taking and discussion that we're having today will help you with that, okay? So, sociology really is not a very old subject to study in school. It's really only been around for about 150 years or so, give or take. It was at the turn of the last century, so the turn of the 19th to 20th century, that sociology really kind of caught on and took off. It's older than that, but there is a sociologist named Emil Durkheim that you will read about in Chapter 1. I think I see your chapter open right there. What page number is that?
11.
Page 11 in Chapter 1, you can read about several different early sociologists, but Emil Durkheim is one of them. He's actually the guy who coined the term social facts, and he's the guy who studied the topic that we're going to use today to kind of practice using our sociological imagination, okay? So, the Industrial Revolution is a key point of history. It's a key topic that we use in so many different classes that you're studying. I know y'all have heard about it before in history class. You know, literature has a demarcation of how it changes and has different styles at the Industrial Revolution. I teach cultural geography, and we talk about several different industrial and post-industrial revolutions. So it's a topic that you will discuss in so many different classes. What we are going to do now is we're going to look at social facts the way that they were before the Industrial Revolution and social facts the way that they were after the Industrial Revolution, and the differences that Emil Durkheim noticed in micro-scale patterns. So we'll see how that social structure, the different shapes of social structure, can really affect your life experiences in profoundly different ways. Okay? So, I'm going to have two columns here. Oh, my pen is not very good. Can y'all see that okay? Social facts before the Industrial Revolution. Can I just put IR for Industrial Revolution? Okay. Do what? Yes. And we're going to talk about the social facts after the Industrial Revolution. Okay? So, remember, social facts is a combination of macro and micro. That's why it helps us, understanding it helps us with our sociological imagination, developing our sociological imagination. But it's about social structure, because the structure of society, the matrix, if you will, of society, sets up certain life experiences for us. So the Industrial Revolution is a big deal in history because it brought about a change from manpower to machine power, right? And it made work easier to get done. It changed the nature of work. And remember, from a functionalist perspective, functionalists know that social change happens all the time. But when social change happens in one place, like the workforce, like we're going to talk about here, social change is going to trickle down or trickle up or over, or however you want to think of it. It's going to touch lots of other aspects of society and social structure too. And so that's what we're going to notice here. Before the Industrial Revolution happened, work had to be done, but it was done by human beings for the most part, with maybe just animals to help us pull a plow or something like that, right? So this is, before the Industrial Revolution, we had small towns, and really the majority of the business that went on was agriculture related. It was agriculture related in these small towns. That's the work that needed to be done. Sure, there was a school and school teachers in these small towns, but the teachers taught the farm workers, the farm owners, the teachers taught, you know, the relatives of agricultural workers. Sure, there was a bank, but the bank was there to keep the money for the farm. Sure, there was a doctor, but the doctor treated farmers. So there were lots of different jobs, but they were all there because they were agricultural related. These small towns were very close-knit. You've heard that phrase before? Close-knit. One of my students before said, oh yeah, that means everybody was in everybody's business. Yeah, it does. It means everybody was in everybody's business. That is a particular structure of this small town society where everybody knew everybody, not just at one snapshot in time, but there was generational stability in these small towns. Meaning the Smiths and the Joneses and the Johnsons and the Thompsons and the Walkers and the whoever your last name was, generations of those families had lived in these small towns for decade after decade after decade. So you had a connection to the place. You had a connection to other people who were living in the town, because this old lady Thompson knows that you are the third son of younger Mr. Smith's wife or something, right? So there's always that connection that you have with other people, and the close-knit nature of the community Yes, it means that everybody is in everybody's business, but that comes with some good social benefits because you are less likely to, and when I say you, I mean a person in general is less likely to try to cause trouble, definitely commit crime, but cause trouble if everybody knows everybody and somebody's going to see you do it. You know, you have that deterrent. If you know that you're going to get caught, you might as well not do it. So this stability that we're talking about here, this social stability, means that you really kind of have a safe network of people who look out for each other. You don't have a whole lot of unstable situations, such as somebody is down on their luck and they don't have enough money for food or for rent or something. The whole community is probably going to know that about you, and typically, because we come together as a community, we're going to take care of you for this short period of time because you would do it for me. So I'm going to make sure that you eat. I'm going to make sure that your kids are, have clothes or whatever, and we watch out for each other. So this generational stability keeps, and the close-knit, small nature of the town, where everybody even has a work relationship close to each other, this kept people on the straight and narrow, whether you wanted to or not, but also it kept the differences between wealth and poverty a little bit less distinctive, because there was motivation for people who were better off to help those who were lesser, just because of the close-knit. Like, there's so many social benefits to this old shape of society before the Industrial Revolution. Pretty much everywhere there were small towns, big cities too, but spaced way out over the landscape. And, once a year, somebody from the small towns would get all the agricultural product and carry it on into the city and sell it like as a selling center, but then come on back to their small town and live life stable, safe, moving forward. There were very few social problems like crime, as I said. There were also, according to public records that can be searched and used as a secondary analysis kind of tool right now, according to public records, there were very few problems like suicide that we tend to think of as a psychological problem. Some people think of suicide as there was something wrong with that person for them to go into so much despair. I don't know how your psychology teachers approach that topic when, if y'all discuss suicidal tendencies, but you didn't have those kinds of issues very often at all, just like you didn't have murders, just like you didn't have very many thefts. I don't want to say it never happened, that would be inaccurate, but it seems, if we use our sociological imagination like Emile Durkheim did, it seems that the social facts, the patterned way of thinking, feeling, and acting on the macro scale, back then, enabled micro-scale life experiences to be different, more stable, more secure, and peaceful, really, than after the Industrial Revolution. Some of you probably remember that during the Industrial Revolution, all that agricultural work that used to have to be done, however I worded that that statement poorly, all the agricultural work that used to have to be done by hand, people were inventing machine ways to do that faster with fewer people. So now, not all of us have a job anymore. Not all of us have a role or a function on that farm. What's going to happen, therefore, to the population if you have a whole bunch of people in this small town that all had agricultural jobs, or at least related to that. And now all of a sudden, machines are taking place of a lot of the agricultural work that needs to be done. What's going to happen to your job out in the small town area? Bye-bye job, and if you want a job, if you need income, which who doesn't, you're going to have to move, like you said, right? And so where do you move? You move where that industry is happening, right? So after the Industrial Revolution, there were still plenty of small towns, but the population that had been stable for a long time with families that everybody knew, some people from each of those families had to move into much larger cities. Golly, my marker's completely gone now. Where's another marker for me?
There's a brown one.
Thank you. Maybe it works. Let's see. Okay, yes, that's much better. Okay, so larger towns. Or even you can use the word cities. Cities here is probably a little bit better. And in these larger towns, in these larger cities, not everybody had a job that was immediately connected to each other. There were so many people in the population, the jobs were manufacturing. And manufacturing jobs are less, it seems, manufacturing jobs are less enjoyable than some of the hands-on agricultural work. It's more monotonous, you know that word, kind of stays the same all the time, and you're indoors all the time instead of being outdoors at least some of the time in an agricultural thing. And also these large towns had so many people, it wasn't close-knit. You came from a close-knit place, but all of a sudden you're seeing faces of people who you've never seen before, and you don't have that connection. Like, oh, I think that's Smith's niece who goes to the other church on the other side of town. Maybe you didn't know them personally, but you had that connection. Somebody in your general area knew, oh yes, that person is this person's niece or whatever. Here you did not have close-knit. You had people all around. So you shouldn't have been lonely. There were large populations of strangers. You supposed to just go up and be friendly and strike up a conversation with a stranger, or do people tell you stranger danger, right?
I mean, probably back then they probably didn't see stranger danger, but now we do.
Actually, these small towns, you had this generational stability, and if an outsider came in, there was a lot of suspicion of the outsider. Who are you? Who do you come from? Who are your people? Right? What are your morals, basically? Right? Yes, what are you here for? Are you saying, you can watch some old, Bonanza episode or something, and a stranger rolls into town, right? The stranger rolling into town is like news, right? Strangers are not approachable. Strangers are not part of your social network. Strangers aren't going to check up on you if you missed church on Sunday morning. They're not going to knock on your door to make sure you're feeling okay. Are you sick? Can I bring you a pie? They're not going to say these kinds of things. And so there's not generational stability. There isn't even really stability past your weekly rental of the room that you're staying in the boarding house, where you know no one. Okay? So these larger towns that don't have generational stability, they have a whole bunch of people from all kinds of other places, scattered places where people come from and gather in that city. Huge populations from scattered places. This makes you suspicious a little bit. I mean, think about our own experiences now. We did not live at this time, but even our own experiences now, some of us are from small towns, or some of us have had our families tell us, be careful if you're going here, or don't act this way when you don't know these people. We get these suggestions, at least, for how to guard ourselves against new places, unsure situations, and definitely strangers. So, one thing that you saw happen, one thing that Emil Durkheim noticed during his secondary analysis of data that was kept from these two eras of history, like I said over here, crime rates weren't at zero, but crime rates over here in this structure of society were really low. Crime rates over here in this structure of society were really high. Why do you think, let's look at this description, kind of really brief description of these two different structures of society, this set of social facts and that set of social facts. Why would crime go up? Do you think it's just a coincidence, or could it be a result of this? You think it's a result of it? Emil Durkheim did too. He thought it was a result of it. Why are you saying that?
Okay, so the crime rate was low on before.
It was low before.
Okay, you have your grandma, you have your grandma's grandma, and you've got all these people that
You got grandma and grandma's grandma, and everybody knows you.
Like, they know you. So I'm not going to go steal a soda pop from
Yeah.
the gas station.
You're less likely to steal the bubble gum from the
Because
gas station. Yeah.
Everybody knows me, and they'll tell my grandma, and I'm not getting in trouble with her. But
Yeah.
over here, if I go and
But
steal
it,
a soda
but
pop,
also, but wait a second. Let me stop you right there. So they'll tell your grandma if they see you stealing the bubble gum or whatever your example was. So the crime might have happened. You might have shoplifted some gum. But grandma will get told about it. Grandma will give you a whooping, right? Grandma will give you a whooping, and she'll drag you by the ear back to where you have to confess, and you're embarrassed because of the whooping, you're embarrassed because of the confession, and you work off the... So it's not necessarily that the crime didn't happen, but you had real consequences from people you cared about, and if it happened once when you were 8, it probably ain't gonna happen again, because that was the worst experience of your life, right? And so it's not to say that crime never happened, but serious crimes, very, very unlikely to happen because of that life experience that you're talking about. Everybody knows my grandma, my grandma's grandma, and my next door neighbor, and so before I even get home from sliding that bubble gum in my pocket, there is a contingent of people who are ready to, all 3 of them are going to spank me, right? Because I did this bad thing. Here, we're supposed to keep to ourselves around strangers. And we might be 75 people in a store where the bubble gum is. And it's really easy to be standing next to somebody and just slip it in our pocket and not really have anybody see us. And we don't know the store owner, so we might not even have the same guilt. We haven't been to church in a while, so we might not have the same guilt. We don't live with our mommies and daddies anymore because we have a room in a boarding house, so we're not accountable to anybody. So when they see this bubble, there's nobody there to see this bubble gum on the countertop. Where'd you get the bubble gum? Where'd you get the money for that? And the questions don't come. Crime has gone up. Pickpocketing, mugging, that kind of stuff, all of these types of data, these recorded instances of crime went way up. And so Emil Durkheim thought about, it's probably because we tend to feel more invisible, and we tend to feel that when we do see something happen, it's none of our business if we're among strangers. And also, suicide rates went up, as you'll read in chapter 1 if you haven't already done it. Suicide rates went way up. Why do you suppose that? Do what? Well, bullying is a big reason why it does happen today. It's not a psychological situation, it's a social situation, and that certainly could happen here. What about loneliness? You maybe have never been around so many people in your entire life, but you're around people who you are not accountable to and who aren't your friend, you can't trust openly, and so you might be the most lonely you've ever been in your life. And so Emil Durkheim noticed, and you can read in your textbook about this, he noticed that suicide rates went up, but not among everybody in the population, only particular types of people in the population. Single males who did not have a social network, who didn't, they did not go to church and have that social network. They did not have people they lived with at home who were close to them and have that social network. They did not have that close-knit connection to community that they had experienced before. And even if they were born into a larger town and never experienced the small town life, suicide rates were still higher. And Emile Durkheim said that the social facts, the structure of society, was definitely at play here with our personal life experiences, our personal behaviors. When we look at statistics like crime that were really low in that first organization, social structure, really high in this second social structure, suicide, really low rates in that first social structure that we're looking at over here, really high in this social structure over here. It's an interesting thing when you read back to his historical analysis of this particular period in history. And this is really a turning point for sociology. Sociologists had been around for a long time, but Emile Durkheim was really the first one who was successful at making sociology universally accepted and understood. Some people still today are very against sociology. No, what should I say about that? I don't mean they're against it. I mean that sociology in general looks at society as this thing that has rules that humans have to follow to get by in life. And especially 100 years ago, 125 years ago, when Emile Durkheim was really promoting sociological information, many more people in society still looked at God as the entity with rules that people had to follow in life. And sociology was not well accepted because sociologists suggested that society and not God had the rules that governed everyday life. And even suggested that believing in a God that had rules we had to follow or guidelines for daily life was silly to a certain extent. So some people, my parents included, when I started studying this general field in college, were very disapproving of me doing that because they're very religious people. I am myself a very religious person. But some very religious people look at sociology and say sociologists are trying to replace God and God's rules with society and society's rules. And that's true for some. However, even if you are a very religious person, such as I, it is very important for you to understand where this secular approach to human behavior is coming from, because this is the world we live in, and it will help you make better educated arguments about why you are a believer, right? So this is a very helpful class, whether your grandma thinks that it's not, Yeah, I mean, hopefully you won't have anybody tell you it's from the devil, but yeah, I mean,
No.
Right. I mean, honestly, my family growing up almost said that. Oh, you're going to hell. They didn't say it, but essentially,
Well, if I do, let's put our party hat on.
some people, some people have that attitude. But anyway, so this class is not designed at all to tell you that you should replace your notion that there's a God and rules that God has that you're supposed to follow. However, this class is designed to tell you that society is also kind of an entity that we can't touch and can't see, and has macro scale patterns and rules that maybe aren't written down 1 through 10 on clay tablets, but they are there, and we have to follow them if we want to get by as easily as possible in life. But our life experiences are not 100% our own responsibility. Our life experiences come to a great extent from that social structure. I keep pointing up here because the social structure on the macro scale, the pattern way of thinking, feeling, and acting, we are subject to that. Okay? We have to follow that. If we want to be, here's my air quotes, normal, whatever the heck normal actually means. You don't need to try to define that for me. I certainly will not try to define it for you. What do you think? Questions? Comments?
Concerns.
Yes, questions, comments, concerns? Okay, so text me with questions if you have them. We're finished just a little bit early today, like I told you we were gonna, because this is our last topic for chapter 1. So remember, when you're doing the reading assignment, I don't know if I said it for the camera a minute ago. I think I've said it to you all at least before the camera started. But remember, as you're doing your reading assignment, you should, by this weekend, after this week is over and this lecture is over, you should have chapter 1 under your belt. You should read it. And then next week when we start class again, of course Friday I'm going to post a lecture, but it's going to go over, it's going to be less lecture and more like assignment explanation for Project 1. We're going to use the 3 sociological perspectives in Project 1, and I'll present that to you in a video for Friday. And then next week we'll start Chapter 2, so y'all have a good Labor Day, and I will see y'all next week, okay? And you online students have a great Labor Day too. I'll see you in cyberspace. Bye.